Hello folks, and welcome back to the workshop. So what have we got for you today is a crazy power electronics experiment. It's been a while since we've had a crazy power electronics experiment, so I thought it was about time that we had another one. Now, what we've got dissected for you is a Gen 2 Toyota Prius inverter converter. These things are just so common these days and so cheap that I've been wondering what we could possibly do with them. Now, what we're going to go through with you today is to examine the possibility of using the buck boost converter as a battery charger. So, in order to do some evaluations, what we've got is we have a Prius battery connected through the normal battery terminals here. So that goes down here and down there, and that's just a normal Prius battery, and I've got a current clamp there so that I can monitor the current in and out of it. So over here, then what we have, and I'm going to bring you over here so we can get a better view. So what we've done here is we have basically broken out the wiring harness into pretty much three different parts. We have the three phases for MG1, three phases for MG2. We have the MG1 and MG2 enable lines currently floating, so they're disabled. So both of the inverters in here are currently turned off. These two yellow wires here are VL and VH. These are isolated voltage measurements for the high voltage bus and for the battery coming in, but we're not using those at the minute. We have a little proto board here which has a, let me bring you guys in a bit better there on that. We have a little proto board here which has a low side driver chip, and the purpose of that is to take the weak PWM signal that we're getting from our analog discovery here and bump that up to a plus and minus 12 volt signal that is needed to feed the converter PWM. So how do we get power into this? Well, that's quite easy. Here you'll see brown and a blue wire, and underneath there we've the earth connected to the casing of the inverter, and that's just going to a plain Jane 13 amp plug, and we're putting 230 volts AC into two of the three MG1 terminals. So what this allows us to do then is to derive a high voltage bus from mains currently single phase power, buck that down using the converter, and supply current to our battery. Okay, now I do have to warn you guys that the odds of something exploding here are pretty high. I'll turn off that light there so it's not wiping out the camera. So currently this multimeter here is showing us the high voltage DC bus, which is currently at 0. The scope here is showing us the converter PWM. Now, one thing that you have to know about how the converter PWM functions is the half bridge, depending on the duty, switches between high side on fully and low side on fully. So it's kind of switches between doing buck and boost converting, but more about that later. We want to see if we can actually get this thing to work. Now I have added my AC power meter here so we'll be able to see the power coming in. Over here we have a DC clamp meter on our battery. So let's see if we can wake this disaster up. Now What we don't want to do is to simply take our AC power, plug that in, and throw the switch, because we've got a discharged capacitor here, and if we throw that, that's going to blow a fuse or trip a breaker or cause some kind of damage. So we want to start off by having our converter PWM at 0, and that ensures that the high side switch is fully on. Now, if we now come along, we initiate from the high voltage battery a pre-charge, we will now have in fact pre-charged the high voltage bus up to 205 volts, which is our battery voltage. So I'm going to close the main contactor. Now, we still don't want to throw the mains on, because if we do, we're going to blow up, because we've got the high side switch fully on, so all of the rectified mains would just flow down through the high side and attempt to go into the battery, draw too much current and blow a fuse. So what we're going to do is we're going to start PWMing until we boost the 205 volts here up above what the rectified AC would be. So I'm going to go up to about 330 or 340 volts here. So let's start piling in some PWM. Here the 2 kilohertz, we're at 270. There's 340. We can now turn on the mains. Okay, mains power is now on. And what's going to happen is, as that voltage drops, we're now going to start charging. We're now putting about 0.8 amps, I believe. No, sorry, we're not charging yet. So now what I got to do is to start rolling the PWM back. You can see this voltage start to drop. And now we're charging at 0.5 amps. So I've got 2 amps coming in at 230 volts now. And we should be able to do power on this, might be a more sensible thing. Yeah, there's power. It's got 250 watts going in there now at the minute. And we pretty much leveled off, because what's happened now is that our battery voltage has came up to meet the voltage that we're bucking down from our 315, which is our rectified mains. So if we back our PWM down a little bit more, okay, now we're putting 1.3 kilowatts from the mains. I'm putting 5 amps, which is a little bit over a kilowatt, into our battery. So we are now actually taking AC mains power from the grid here. We are rectifying it using the MG1 inverter and bucking that and controlling it with the Prius buck boost converter. We got 1 kilowatt here AC and about 4 amps going into our battery. So this is just a very crude demo of being able to charge a battery directly from mains power, just using our Prius inverter converter. So okay, so let's have a bit of a better look-see here, get you guys a bit closer in, wake our meters back up again. Let's put this one on. Yeah, that's AC power. I'm going to reset the ammeter here on our battery. Zero that. So that's our battery current meter here. Obviously here's where we've got our driver chip, taking our 5 volt PWM, feeding that to our converter stage. Got our scope, going to be showing us our PWM and voltage here. So procedure is, we want to start with our PWM at 0%. What that means then for here is that we have no PWM on the scope. And it means that the high side switch, so many projects going on here, but it means this high side switch is turned fully on. So any voltage here is just going to go straight up, and any voltage here is going to go straight down. So you can picture that it's pretty much a closed switch. Now, what we want to do now is we want to pre-charge. So I've got my pre-charging contactor on the power supply. I'll bring you guys over to the meter, and I'm going to kick the pre-charge. You see we get a little pulse of current, and if we have a look here, you'll see that our high voltage caps are up at 211 volts, which is our battery voltage. So I'm going to go ahead now, shove this wire in here, and that closes the main contactor. Now, we're then here where we need to bring this up above about 340 volts. So I will keep you guys stationed here, and I will crank up the PWM and hopefully not manage to blow myself the hell up. There's 290. There's 340. So I can now turn on the mains. Mains power is now on, but I'm not drawing any mains power because right now I'm boosting from the battery to maintain a higher voltage on those caps, and I got 1.4 amps coming out of my battery through the boost converter. Now, if I reduce my PWM, so I'm here, my little slider guy, let me see if I can get you guys in there. Here things start to load up nicely. I've now got about 1 kilowatt of power going into the system from the AC side. Where am I at here? And we've got about 307 volts, sorry, DC on the DC bus. And we are pushing about 2.5 amps into our high voltage battery here at the minute. So this is just a little bit of a close-up of what we were doing earlier, just in case that didn't come out. I've got about 700 watts or so going in there now, and obviously what I can do here is if I decrease the PWM some more, we're back up now at about 1.4 kilowatts on the mains, and we got about 5 amps of current going into our battery. So I'm going to stop there because don't really know the state of charge of that battery. I'd rather not blow myself up. So what we then really gimbal, it's really annoying me today, sorry about this folks. So what I'm going to do is just boost back up till I get a higher voltage, turn off the mains, reduce PWM to 0, and then we'll see that I have my battery voltage here because I've got the high side fully on again. Cut my contactors, and that's pretty much it. Now, some of you might quite reasonably ask the question, what's so great about this? Well, what we've got here, to my mind, is the nub of a very useful design product, call it what you will, for EV conversions. See, if we take the Gen 2 Prius inverter converter, potentially we get in the one package, we get a inverter which can also be used to control either an AC or a DC motor. We get the buck boost converter that we should be able to use as a battery charger. And we get a DC to DC converter that takes our high voltage and gives us 14 volts for normal vehicle accessories. Now, obviously this stuff will work on the later generations also, like the Gen 3 and the Gen 4. I believe there's someone working on the Open Inverter forum trying to do this with a Gen 3. Now, so what are our next steps? Well, number one thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get some cooling going on here before I start pushing more power. So we're going to need a little pump and a radiator and a few things like that. Second thing then is we need a battery that's a bit stronger than that Prius battery, so that I can ram some more current into it. At the minute, obviously the Prius battery voltage is starting to come up way too quickly. The real test that I want to do with this is I think that I can retrofit this, or at least test it, in the Red Arrow, which has a nominal battery voltage of 192 volts. Now, we can certainly charge that from single phase because our 320 volts that we get from rectifying single phase will be higher than the the 210 volts that I charge the 60 cell pack to. But the really interesting thing will be if we feed 3-phase power into those MG1 terminals. It'll be 400 volts 3-phase, which should give us a rectified voltage of around 550 to 560 volts, and then we can buck that back down, both to charge a like 200 odd volt pack in the Red Arrow, but also be able to charge a high voltage pack like a 400 volts battery. Now you might then ask, well, could we boost? And the answer to that question is yes. So we could charge a 400 volt battery from single phase. Some of you that have hung out with me over the years may recall me doing experiments with an EMW charger way back in the day. And the real problem with that wasn't the control stuff, it was all of the power electronics, trying to get all that so that it wouldn't explode. Well, the good news is Toyota have done the heavy lifting for us and have given us a power stage that's potentially capable of 50 kilowatts, or I think in the Gen 2 it might be 30 kilowatts, but either way, Tesla charger levels of performance. Now, I know I've already got people going to be writing comments and screaming at me, Damien, you can't do that, you don't have power factor correction. Yeah, let's not go there for a minute. I know I don't. That's not so much of a problem on 3-phase as it is on single phase, so let's just park that one till we see if we get a working design here. So that's kind of what I got for you today, guys. Pro tip: if you find my videos too long and too boring, but you are yet still compelled to see what I am doing, apparently some people have success with watching me at increased speed. 1.5 to 2 times normal speed seem to be the preferred choices, so do give that a try and report back. Personally, I talk as fast as I can, so if we can speed me along like that, then so much the better. So we'll be back with this project once we get some cooling figured out. We will take it to site B, where we have, I don't know what it is, but it's about like, I don't know, 30 or 40 kilowatts of 3-phase power, so something will definitely go wrong there. And yeah, so we will definitely be pursuing this. We'll come up with some kind of a little control circuit. Should be fairly straightforward, even for my 6502 levels of programming skill. So I'll leave you guys there Don't forget to dislike, unshare, and unsubscribe. Check the links in the description for the usual suspects, Patreon and PayPal, if you wish to financially support this craziness. Also, there'll be links in there to the Open Inverter forum, GitHub, and as many other resources that I can put in there to help you find out information for your project. So, until then, happy book converting.